So welcome to Pyramid Plus. This is the January 24th through May 11th Pyramid Plus session. And my name is Alicia Boston. I'm the Center Director here at Greenwood Plaza downstairs. My co-trainer is Rochelle Nadeau. I'm going to speak loud because I want to make sure that the camera hears me because I'm training to become a Pyramid Plus trainer. So Rochelle is the co-trainer, making sure that I'm providing all of that proper information for you and making sure that we're going through the materials properly. And then a couple of times during the 18 modules, I have to be recorded. There's nothing that you guys will have to worry about as far as that material goes. It's just homework assignment for me that I have to turn in. So they make sure that I'm following the procedure and the process. I've been in early childhood education since I was 18 years old. I started out as a preschool teacher. I moved to Colorado in 1993 and got my first job down off of Spear Boulevard. It was the early learning center for the employees of the federal government building, and then, you know, life happened and moved and all that wonderful stuff, and so we ended up moving to the Westminster area, and I ended up working for a private owner, and that company, that small business, was then purchased by Bright Horizons when the owners decided they wanted to retire, and that's how I became a Bright Horizons employee. So as part of my role as a director, I'm sure some of you guys Bright Horizons employees may recognize me. I teach diversity, I teach handwriting without tears, everyday math. There's a whole bunch of different things that I have. Do I look familiar?
You do.
I
look
do?
familiar.
Okay.
Yeah.
You do too, a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. And so Pyramid Plus was a subject that they really wanted to challenge me with and really add to the benefit of as the early educators in the classrooms. So I'm really excited about this. I'm a little nervous because this is my first session, but we've got Rochelle here to help. So we'll get started, and the first slide I'm going to come out of the way. So the first, like I said, we're here at the Pyramid Plus, the Colorado Center for Social Emotional Competence and Inclusion. It is also equivalent to the ECE 103 class, Guidance Strategies, as well. So this can be a class that you participate in for the 103 equivalent, or you could also take this class as a CEU, and it really goes well with the trainings that we would like to add to your classroom. So I really hope that you guys are excited about this. So we want to say a special thank you to our Pyramid Plus funders. And as part of my training, one of the dynamics that I learned was that this program was really designed on the campus at CU Denver, and it's been funded and promoted by the Department of Human Services, the Division of Child Care, Division for Developmental Disabilities, the Early Intervention Program, the Division of Behavioral Health and Child Welfare, and then the Colorado Health Foundation, Temple Wayne Buell Foundation, and then the Mile High United Way. So all of these contributors help to really make this program what it is today, and so we're really appreciative of that partnership that we have with them. So tonight, our agenda, we do have, we are in session 1. There are 18 sessions or 18 modules. We're going to talk about every class time. We're going to talk about the agenda. We're going to go over the learning objectives and the logistics of the class. We're going to have some activities. So while it is a little tight in here tonight, if we decide that we would feel a little bit more comfortable down in one of my classrooms, we can certainly change that dynamic. Just downstairs, not quite so hot and so bright. But we will have time to get up out of our chairs and do an activity here. We're going to introduce the Pyramid Plus Center. We're going to talk about the dynamics of the Pyramid Plus Center and how does Pyramid Plus fit into that. We're going to talk about some prevalence data and the impact of challenging behaviors in young children, which, as we all have seen, working in classrooms every day, day in and day out, we're seeing some dynamics that can really have an effect on the classroom, emotions and behavioral challenges. So we're going to talk about some of that, that information and data. We're going to talk about an overview of the Pyramid Plus approach training. And then we're going to wrap up the evening with our thought seeds and our quality improvement, okay? And so, so thought seeds, quality improvement, and then you will need to do an evaluation on my performance tonight and each night as part of our training, okay? And if you have not had a chance, the sign-in sheet is on the back. Always make sure that you sign in. If your name is not printed on there, yep, that's the document there. Then please feel free to write your name in, especially if you are here for a makeup class. Also, if you have a payment, then you can see me at our break time or after the class to finalize that as well. Okay. So our learning objectives, we are going to look at an overview of the origins of Pyramid Plus and the purpose of it. We're going to talk about the goals of the Pyramid Plus Center. We're in your handouts that we'll talk about here in just a moment. I've given you some prevalence data, and it's really some information that just talks about supporting the needs of the social emotional competence in young children today. Okay, and then we'll do a brief overview of the Pyramid Plus approach training. So we're going to talk about that pyramid, what it looks like, it's color coded, why is it color coded, and then we're going to talk about how each of those sessions correlate with that pyramid model. Okay. Okay, so we're going to start with some logistics first, and that is our ground rules. So what I'd like from you is for us to have a strong, capable, collaborative class today. What are some ground rules that you would like to have for the group for us tonight? Just shout them out. Don't be shy.
Be positive with others.
Be positive. Okay.
No cell phone usage.
I'm sorry?
No cell phone usage.
No cell phone usage. I'm so sorry. I have very hard hearing on the right side, so if I ask, I don't mean to be rude. So, all right. So no cell phone. That's a C. Okay. Anything else?
To be on time.
Let's be on time. Yep. Be on time. We start on time. We finish on time. Absolutely. Yeah. Anything else? This is a living ground rules document, so if we feel like we need to add to it at any point during either tonight or any of the other sessions, then we can certainly add to it. Anything else that you want me to?
Bathroom breaks, do you have them scheduled in, or?
I do have breaks scheduled in, absolutely, yep. But I'm also, I perfectly understand that, our bladders are bladders, so when nature calls, feel free to, step out. So a couple of things that I wanted to let you know is that we have the vending machine over here. There are snacks tonight, but on hand, on usual, I won't always have snacks. If you would like either the PowerPoints emailed to you or put on a flash drive, if you bring one, or if you brought one tonight, I can certainly transfer those documents to you, or I can email them to you. I provided everybody a copy for today, just for today's session, so that way everyone had materials. The bathrooms, if you head back down the really long hallway, And then the elevators are in front of you. The women's bathroom is on the right. You can't really see it. It's next to the drinking fountain. But the women's bathroom is there. And there is also there's also a coffee station right out here too. It's a free coffee station. So it's touchscreen, and you can certainly help yourself to to any coffee that you would like. And
It's not
seeing as
functioning.
how we will be here until roughly about 9 o'clock. So
It's not working.
It's not working right now.
it's not working right now? Okay. Well, okay. Maybe next week we'll have coffee. Okay. So then we have over here, we have the parking lot. And the parking lot is an opportunity for us to place any questions that we have during the course of the training. Any questions that you may have, we can certainly put them on the parking lot, and then we can find time to to discuss any of those questions, either during the potty breaks or even after. I want to be very respectful of your time, and so so if there's anything that we need to, and if I'm unable to answer for you, then that will give me as well. That'll give me time to really be able to have a knowledgeable answer for you. So, so do feel comfortable to put up any questions that you have on the parking lot. Okay. So in your packets as well, I also handed you. I printed out copies of the session handouts. So on the front page, you do have a list of the list of handouts for each session. Okay, and we're going to discuss a couple of the different pieces of information. So on after the introduction, there's a handout here for the statewide system change improvement in services for children with challenging behavior. So some really great information that I really liked in this document that I feel like was beneficial to our study tonight. We also have here our prevalence data, which we will talk about a little bit more in our session. And then a couple more pages back, I can give you my copy here. Yeah. And we have our Pyramid Plus model so that you can see exactly what that pyramid looks like and how it relates to each tier. And we'll talk more about the different tiers. I thought this page was very helpful, especially when I was taking Pyramid Plus, because there are a lot of acronyms in the Pyramid Plus module, or the Pyramid Plus approach training. So, so this sheet here has the acronyms, the descriptions, and actually the websites as well for each of the different resources that we have as early educators. Okay. The next document also, it will go into a little bit more of a descriptive detail as to the different levels, and then what we will be talking about and what we will be learning within each session. So there's going to be some times when we are talking about a certain tier, and I know that we're always so quick to want to know that information. That information is there, it just, we want to go in a nice flow, and we want to keep to that rhythm and have it stay in its proper pattern, because then once we're building that understanding level, then it will, it'll just tie in very nicely. But I did provide that copy as for you as well, and then we have our thought seeds and our guided viewing, creating bright futures document as well. So the evaluations that I will have you do, those will be passed out as we get closer to the end of the session. Okay. Okay. Any questions so far as to the handouts or the logistics? We're pretty comfortable with the parking lot, the ground rules. We're doing okay so far? Okay. I'm just gonna keep checking in with you just because I want to make sure that we're doing all right. All right. So our first activity is going to be we're gonna do the stand on the line. So this is gonna be about 10 to 15 minutes where we are going to, as you've noticed, there are some signs around the walls. And on each side, there's an indicator that that will describe how comfortable you feel with your knowledge of Pyramid Plus. Okay? So we have brand new to Pyramid Plus. We're familiar with Pyramid Plus. We are somewhat familiar, or we're extremely familiar with Pyramid Plus. So if you want to squeeze out of this tight spot and pick your category. Why you feel that it's a brand new topic for you? Anybody want to kind of be that brave person and give me some thoughts, what you're hoping to gain from tonight?
More knowledge.
More knowledge, yeah. Yeah, to help better support us in the classrooms, absolutely.
I never worked in a preschool or school situation. I've only had childcare experience.
Mm-hmm.
So with my new job, this is hopefully gonna help.
Absolutely.
Getting more knowledge.
Yes,
Especially
absolutely.
the behavioral aspects of it.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, and familiar, we've got one friend in familiar. So tell me a little bit about your comfort level.
Well, I'm making up some sessions, so
Oh,
I've
okay.
actually gone through sessions 8 through 17 already.
Okay,
So I've been able to implement the parts from those sessions in my classroom already. So I wouldn't say I'm extremely familiar yet,
Yeah.
because I haven't gone all the
Right.
way through. But
perfect.
Yeah.
Great, good. All right, and then my somewhat familiar group. How are you guys feeling?
I've heard about it from other schools and stuff, that's why I'm so excited about learning more about, what I can do in the classroom and how I can use it.
Great, great.
I've always been on the computer, what's that website, I can't think of it now, that's the end of the day. The Colorado.
Colorado
thank
Shine.
you.
I've seen it on there all the time, and I'm always clicking on it, and, I've never known it. So.
Right, right. Well, one of the dynamics that I gave feedback to my supervisors and my instructor was that, I've been a director for 8 years. I've been in the classroom for more than 8 years, and I've heard about Pyramid Plus just numerous years, and I always thought it was the class that you took if you needed to become ECT qualified, and yet you didn't need any other further college education. But by being placed in this training program, and I just finished my Pyramid Plus classes back in December, so I did the Saturday sessions with Rochelle, and I learned so much, and had someone really encourage me to take it before I had to take it, I think I know it would have really benefited me as a teacher. And so I hope that you see the gains and the insights as much as I did from this. So thank you so much for sharing. You guys can sit back down. The Pyramid Plus Center. So Pyramid Plus is a state-funded, nonprofit organization housed at the University of Colorado at Denver. It's a program that helps to support teachers, programs, families, and in that social emotional competence. Okay. What is the goal of Pyramid Plus? So the goal is to increase the use of evidence-based early childhood social emotional and inclusive practices in ECE, in early child care settings. So it includes family in-home care, it includes large center child care, in-home providers, so any of the dynamics that that we're out helping to support children. So Okay, so Pyramid Plus Center goals. So the goal number 1 is that they want to, excuse me, we want to support state collaboration and interagency teams. We want to partner with other initiatives, create liaisons with national centers. We're going to provide training and technical assistance for communities and child care providers, certification for coaches and trainers, and certification of Pyramid Plus programs. So, so the certification for coaches and trainers was the program that I attended back in the summer, and there are 2 different types of providers. There's a coach that will come in to work with you one-on-one to help support you in the Pyramid Plus approach in your classroom. They will come in, they will provide you observation and feedback and data and help to provide any answers to the questions that you may have, providing in part to the guidance that you're providing in your classroom. The trainer is the role that I'm training for. It's coming in to a large group and teaching Pyramid Plus to the masses. The coach actually comes to the center or comes to the home. So their dynamic is very different of that of the trainer, but still equally as strong and as important for creating that upscale in social and emotional competence in children and teachers. So coaches, they utilize what they call as a circuit of coaching activities with demonstrating effectiveness. They develop a coaching agreement with you to continue that work in your classroom. They're going to focus on very specific coaching skills, and they want to develop a professional development plan for the coachee. Okay, they're going to use data to drive coaching practices using a fidelity measurement tool, which basically just means that there's guidelines that we're going to follow. We're going to adhere to those so that way we can say the results are this because we followed this tool, because we followed that that guidance. Demonstration sites. This is the one that I really I'm really just kind of impressed by, honestly. When I learned about these, there are schools out there that have received a TA in establishing and maintaining a leadership team. They receive on-site certification, coaches, and trainer support. And they help to create data collection systems and analysis on high fidelity, program-wide implementation, individual classroom performance, and child outcomes. And there are currently 4 locations in Colorado that have that prestigious title to them, and it's not an easy title to achieve. So Val Swan, that's located up in Broomfield, has the title, and Primetime in Norwood, Fremont County Head Start in Canyon City, and Creative Options in Aurora are those 4 locations that are demonstration sites. So when you walk into any of their locations, you're seeing full implementation of Pyramid Plus in their school. Not just a classroom, but their school. So, okay. And of course the purpose of those sites is to create a high fidelity program and serve as places for people to visit to see the practices in action. So, so if I was ever interested in going to, I live in Broomfield, so if I was interested in going to the Val Swan School just to see what we're training, what we're learning on, I mean, their classrooms have that implementation of it, which is pretty amazing. Okay. So our long-term goals with Pyramid Plus is that through state and local capacity, through certified Pyramid Plus trainers, coaches, and programs, we really want to just be able to continue that goal and continue that growth in our classrooms, in our schools, in our leaders. So that way we can say in early childhood education, we're trained in that emotional, social dynamic in supporting these children. When you look at your prevalence data, it's some pretty hard numbers to really see, you know, and those numbers are dated. You know, it's 2019, and some of that data came from 2011, and so any way that we can continue to help support children to be successful in their early years, why not? You know, why not support? Okay, so pivotal concepts. So the tiered approach that promotes outcomes for all children is the pyramid model, the inclusion model, the TA model, okay? And then we have the universal, the targeted, and the intensive tiered approaches that help to promote these outcomes for children. We're gonna, teaching to fidelity. What we're gonna do is what I'm teaching you today is ultimately the whole approach. We don't modify it, we don't edit it, we teach it as it is, so that way you're taking the original concepts and you're applying those into your classroom. There's no modification, because what we know works, we want to keep what works. So, so teaching to fidelity, implementing practices or interventions as intended by the developer. And so that's the that term, teaching to fidelity. That's keeping exactly what was implemented, across every avenue, every coach, every trainer, every classroom, every school, and maintaining that level will help with that fidelity. And I mean, the old adage, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And this is not broken, it works. So, scale up. What we want to do is, we want to bring the practice or the model to more programs and families. So I was so excited to see that I had such a great turnout for this Pyramid Plus session, for the semester, just because that the more teachers that are involved with Pyramid Plus, then the more than that is, it's that wealth of knowledge is being spread out to early education across the Denver metro area. So sustainability, so continuing the high fidelity implementation over a sustained period of time, and that evidence-based practices. That is one of the dynamics, is that the practices that they have been implementing that we're going to talk about over the course of this semester, they're all evidence-based. So they've done the documentation, they've looked at the dynamics, and we know that they work. Okay. All right. Fidelity of implementation is the extent to which an intervention is implemented, and in comparison to its intended design. So we've kind of already talked about that a little bit, but it's holding to that original design and utilizing that, not modifying it, not evolving it or changing it, but holding to that original goal, original project, and putting it out to the masses, and to the schools, to the trainers, to the teachers, coaches. Amount of intervention received, our fidelity is going to hold true. It's going to stay the same when we're teaching classes, when our coaches are going into family providers or child care centers. Fidelity measure tools report the degree of implementation variance from the intended design of the intervention strategy. So there's a lot of resources and tools that coaches and trainers will utilize based off of the information you've provided us and off of the information that the coaches provide us. And that information we upload. We're required to upload all of that information. They want to know how many children have you worked with, or that you currently work with in your classroom that are going to get to be benefited from this training. Because the more children, then of course the better the numbers. Okay. Evidence-based practices. So evidence-based practices is, there is a program called TAXI, and TAXI it's on the handout that you guys have. It's part of the acronyms page, the handout that you received. And TAXI is interventions and supports that have research documenting their effectiveness, approaches that are linked to positive outcomes for children and families, practices that have been demonstrated as effective within multiple research studies with similar outcomes. Okay? And the TAXI website has been changed. It has been modified. So now if you do want to visit, and find out more information about TAXI, the website is now changed to challengingbehaviors.org. Okay, so if you try and type in TAXI, that website is no longer active, and it will. You'd have to. I found it through Google, which was how it was. I wanted to make sure I was going to the right location. And you type in Google and TAXI and you can find it, but you can also visit the challengingbehaviors.org website as well. Okay. Okay, so then our state team representative agencies, this is what we talked about earlier when we talked about the programs that help to fund Pyramid Plus training. So the Office of Early Education, Human Services, Child Welfare Services, Early Intervention Colorado, Child Care EC Councils. So there's a whole list in the handouts that talks about the partnership with these programs as part of that state team agencies that help to support Pyramid Plus. Okay. Pyramid Plus sustainability. So here we have a picture of a big beautiful tree, and at the Pyramid Plus Center they selected the tree as their symbol for Pyramid Plus sustainability. And when you hear why, you're going to say, oh yeah, of course, that makes sense. So so here down in the root area, you've got the roots. It's not seen, it's underground. Those are our funders and our funding. Those are the folks from the Division of Child Welfare and ECE councils and such that have helped to support the development of Pyramid Plus. And after that is your state leadership team, so the representatives that we just talked about are also a part of that root system, which then helped to create the foundation of that tree, which is the Pyramid Plus Center. So after creation of the Pyramid Plus Center, then we have the Pyramid Plus implementation communities, which is your certified sites, your outreach partners, those who are training coaches and trainers to help spread the word about Pyramid Plus. So farther up the trunk now you have Pyramid Plus certified coaches and trainers, and then once you come into the branches and the leaves, you've got health, early care and education settings, family home, early intervention, mental health, which is your branches, and then that all leads to the children and their families, which are the leaves. So, so after you hear the dynamics of why they chose a tree, it really does make sense because it really is a large-scale growth, and that of a living, it's a living organism, Pyramid Plus, because there's so many people involved, and one piece couldn't function without the other. So, such is that of a tree. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay, good. Okay. The search for a quick fix. So, challenging behavior is often directly related to the view that challenging behavior is a child's response to lack of appropriate adult guidance. Another common perspective is that challenging behavior is an indicator that the child is willful and non-compliant, and that an appropriate response from the adult is to assert his or her authority over the child. So, let me ask you, how do you feel about that quote?
It's true.
You feel like it's true?
Oh yeah. I catch myself doing that a lot, that last part. I mean, I'm embarrassed to say it, but it's true. I will be like, I'll try and, I feel like I'm trying to fix it. Like I need an immediate fix. I'm trying to do something that's gonna shake this kid to listen, and to stop behaving that way. And it's just, I need to figure out a different way.
Yeah.
That's why I'm really here.
Yeah. Well, good. No, I mean, I think that's the thing. If we're willing to be honest with ourselves as to, why are we really here and what are we hoping to gain out of this training, I mean, that's going to just help us to be all the more successful in that classroom after Pyramid Plus, Because you're right. I mean, I was 18 years old in a classroom with 3-year-olds and had no idea how to, set the stage for them, when we saw behaviors, or emotional dynamics. And I don't want to tell you my age, but, back then, Pyramid Plus wasn't around. It didn't exist. It wasn't, when you walked into a preschool classroom and it was the teacher says to do this, you do it, and that's what I was taught. It wasn't until my early education experiences evolved when I realized that there's a lot more to it than just the authoritative dynamic, and it really does help to we're not only working with just one child, we all have more than one child in our classroom. We're working to help support the whole classroom and ourselves. So, so we kind of talked about that. Do you agree with these views of challenging behaviors?
Well, I think it's a lot more complex than that.
Yeah. You feel like it's a lot more complex? Yeah. And like you said, it makes you feel embarrassed to say, but that's how.
I'm talking about the response part.
Right,
I'm
but you
like-
feel like you said, that dynamic that you feel that you have to be the authority over the child, and you.
I'm looking for conformity, and
Right.
it should be. I know that I need, it's a learning opportunity.
Mhm.
And like I said, I have to catch myself.
Yeah.
I need to change how I do that, because I want to teach these guys. And I mean, like you're talking about, we're teaching these kids to be a part of a community. We're not teaching them to fall in line and, like
Yeah.
we're drill sergeants or something.
Right. Absolutely.
I mean, they're not in the army, I need to teach them how to be a free person in a free society,
Mhm.
and they have to make those choices themselves, and
Yeah.
if I'm making them for them, they're not gonna do it themselves.
Yeah. Right.
know?
Exactly. So, is there a time when asserting authority is okay?
I think so, when there's danger, and they
Danger
you
involved,
need
yeah.
to get a quick response
And do we feel that the response that we would get from the child would be different if that authoritative tone is really in moments of, safety rather than the norm? I mean, I would think that's probably pretty accurate to say, right? Okay. Great. Any questions? So why is this work so important for our young children? So that's where, take a look at your prevalence data and look at some of those numbers. Look at some of that information in there, that the number of children in foster care, the number of children that died in our state due to neglect or abuse. Look at the expulsion rates too. That one really surprised me, in that children in early childhood education are more likely to be expelled from a program than they are in the school system. And so what kind of message are we really sending? And I mean, as a matter of fact, I can't tell you how many times as a center director I would hear from families, well, we were kicked out of our last center because, my 1.5-year-old is a biter. Well, there's hope for that child, isn't there? Absolutely. And why would we consider that the only alternative, as opposed to helping to support this family and this child? We know that this child is eventually going to get through that stage, so we just need to, set that environment and provide that opportunity. And I never looked at any family, when they came in and they were honest and just said, my child is, needs resources outside of early education, but they really need to be able to socialize in the classroom. I want them to be able to practice what they're getting from OT or, any other, dynamics. And there's always that look of, that plea for help, please help me find a program that's gonna support me and my child. They are the family that will always help support you. They're willing to provide that support for you. We just have to be willing to provide that for them as well. So children with challenging behaviors, they commonly experience rejection from their friends in the classroom, unpleasant interactions with family members. Think about the conversations that you're having with mom and dad at pickup. If we are constantly conveying the negative, well, they didn't listen, well, they pushed, well, they threw something today, or they were destructive. So that child had a very negative dynamic to their day. We've just conveyed that to the parent, and now do we think that child's evening is going to get any better? So those unpleasant interactions, and I've seen some of those, where I've had to explain to parents, this is just information. This is not a request for you to go home and discipline your child. This is just so that you as a parent understand how we are working to build that bond together with your child, and to kind of help set that tone for that behavioral expectation. We're working with them, but parents sometimes panic and they think, if the school is telling me this, then I need to go home and deal with it. But if that happened at 11:30 in the morning, parents pick up at 5:30, and now they, by the time they get home, or they get in the car and it's, you're going to your room, no ice cream tonight. Well, they're being disciplined for something that happened 6 hours ago. The teacher may have already dealt with that, and so where's the motivation for that child to feel like they can turn that around? Their entire dynamic for their whole day has been very negative, and so So a lot of times for them to hear that a child is, is constantly experiencing that negativity, that's heart-wrenching. And as teachers, how often do we tend to put a label on the child or the parents? So the challenging behaviors will also predictable and consistent school failure. I mean, if that child doesn't feel like they're ever going to be successful, if it's constantly negative, if it follows them into kindergarten and first grade, how successful do we think that they're really going to be when they're 8, 9, 10 years old? If they've had that label sitting with them for so long. Okay, and then a lack of community integration. So your prevalence data is definitely going to give you a lot of eye-opening information. Some of it just being that 10 to 15% of all typically developing preschool children have chronic mild to moderate levels of behavior problems. I mean, I'm a parent. I could tell you for a fact that I was perfectly, I'll be perfectly honest with you, my youngest spent her entire 3-year in her bedroom with the door shut. Because, because we just battled all the time, and yet, as a parent, you feel like, here you are, you're the authoritative, I'm not going to let the 3-year-old win, so you're going to your room, well, as they've discovered, every child is going to have some behavioral problems. What we need to do is to help provide them the outlet, the resources to be able to understand those emotions, those behaviors. Children, this one just breaks my heart. Children who are poor are much more likely to develop behavioral problems with prevalence rates that approach 30%. 30%. That's just heart-wrenching. And if the families don't have the resources to enroll their child in an early childhood education, where's the support for them? Where is the dynamic that they are getting what they need? That there's someone who's going to advocate for them. Faculty in higher education programs report that their graduates are least likely to be prepared to work with children with persistently challenging behaviors. And I would say that that's true. We talk about early education classes, and we talk about classes like Introduction to Early Childhood Education. We talk about the theorists and curriculum. But when it comes to challenging behaviors, unless you are a Pyramid Plus participant, or you've taken courses on this subject, I mean, that's why we're all here tonight, right? So that we can help support, that understanding, that level, and that dynamic. So I think that was why I was so excited to be a part of this, because helping to support my team in having those resources and being able to go back into the classroom with ideas, with knowledge, absolutely. I'm happy to be able to support my teachers so that my teachers can now support their children and families and feel like they have ideas and that they have resources. Preschool children are 3 times more likely to be expelled than children in grades K through 12. And I worked closely with the elementary schools in my area. We worked very closely with them with our early education program, and the schools they take it very seriously, the safety and the well-being of children in their schools, as we can all imagine, we all know, but yet it's early education that has no problem expelling a child due to behaviors. Okay. The expulsion rate. So for Black students, they represent 18% of the preschool enrollment. 42% of preschool students suspended once, and 48 suspended more than once. And those are pretty staggering numbers. you know? And boys represent 54% of the expulsion rate in preschool. They are 79% of children suspended once and 82% of children suspended multiple times. And when we say suspended, I think, in my mind, what I'm understanding that term to be is that, you know, that it's an action plan, you know. Even at Bright Horizons, we have an action plan that if we have a child that is, you know, repetitive in behavior, aggressive behavior, we have an action plan, and if they violate that action plan, they are sent home. And ultimately, I mean, that's an early childhood equivalent to being suspended. So, girls who are Black, Native Hawaiian, or other Pacific Islanders represent a larger percentage, 30% or more, of out-of-school suspensions within their racial or ethnic group than girls with other racial or ethnic groups. So I think it's just really hard data to read, and you know, it's hard data to, you know, to actually say out loud, you know, especially when you look at a preschooler, a 3-year-old, you know, a 3 or a 4-year-old. I feel like that's just one of those areas where, as early educators in Colorado, we really have high standards for our teachers. I think we need to change that dynamic to having that high expectation for the quality of the program coming out of the classroom. So now here we have a chart, we have a graph that really gives it in detail. So here's your overall enrollment category, and within that, 43% of these of the children that are receiving an out-of-school suspension, these children here, these are white. 4% is 2 or more races. 29% is the Hispanic Latino ethnic group. 18% is Black or African American. And then down here, our lower percentages, Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islanders is 1%, 4% for Asian, and 2% for American Indian or Alaskan Native. So this is overall enrollment. This is out-of-school suspension. So look at how those numbers drastically change. This is a single suspension, this is a multiple suspension. So 43% of our enrollment in the classroom is made up of white, but 26% of that is contributes to that out-of-school suspension. It's the 42 and the 48% that is Black or African American that makes up that number for suspensions. Okay. So students with a disability, they represent 22% of preschool enrollment and 19% of students suspended once, 17% of more than once for suspension. English learners, if you have a limited English proficient or LEP, they represent 12% of preschool children, 11% of students suspended once, and 9% more than once. So positive outcomes. So let's get to the happy stuff. So studies reveal that those that are enrolled in a high-quality early childhood education program are more likely to complete higher levels of education, have higher earnings, be in better health, and be in a stable relationship, and are less likely to commit a crime or be incarcerated. So that higher quality education obviously has a strong impact on the dynamics of the child's success. Basically, what we are doing now for these children is clearly going to impact them later on in life. So I think I can say unequivocally that we want to be that higher quality program. Positive outcomes when addressing challenging behaviors. We decrease the risk of withdrawal, aggression, noncompliance, and disruption. The treatment impact or fears, the phobias, the depression, the anxiety, the hyperactivity, conduct, OCD. So the treatment on those helps to support, children that do suffer from those challenging behaviors. The positive peer relations, including understanding of friendships, cooperation, and sharing, is addressed with positive outcomes. Increased self-control, self-monitoring, self-correction, improved social emotional, academic success. One of the biggest things that I tell my parents in our program is that what your child is going to get from our program is they're going to get a whole child approach, because it's not just the academics that are important. The academics are going to come, but we want to make sure that your child's social and emotional development is just as strong as their academic development. And so the positive outcomes in a classroom are going to provide that peer interaction, that positive dynamic between, parent and child, teacher and child, child and child, which then leads to overall success coming out of an early childhood program as well. There's a reduced risk for teen pregnancy, delinquency, juvenile delinquency, and special education placement. Okay? Okay. Any questions so far? Do we show hands, keep going, or would you like for us to take it's been an hour, so we could take a 10-minute break if we'd like?
I'm good.
Is that 10-minute break keep going, or is
Yeah,
that, what
keep
is the
going.
thumbs up?
Keep going.
Keep going, okay. All right, we're gonna keep going. Okay, so the Pyramid Plus approach curriculum. So we have the pyramid model, and within the pyramid model, we've got some really fantastic website resources. We've got CEFSL, and that is the Center on the Social Emotional Competence for Early Learning. I really recommend visiting these websites. There's a lot of really great information in there. We're going to talk a lot about these sites throughout the sessions. But if you're curious, if you're always looking for that more information, I really encourage you to visit. And we talked a little bit about TAXI, which is the Technical Assistance Center on Social Emotional Intervention. And again, that website is challengingbehavior.org. Okay? And then we have the Pyramid Model Consortium, which is the pyramidmodel.org as well. Okay? And that acronym sheet too gives a really nice description of each website, and talks about what the not that. I did not want that. Get rid of that. There we go. And it'll talk a little bit more about the social dynamics and emotional competence and such too. So if you're looking for that extra information, those are some great websites to visit. Okay? So here is the pyramid model, and as you can see, it's color-coded. There are 4 tiers, and 4 colored tiers, and then within each framework, there are different levels that you can work on within your classroom. So breaking it down, you've got your promotion tier, which will help to support all children in your classroom. So your effective workforce, nurturing and responsive relationships, high quality supportive environments. Well, that's going to support all of the children in your classroom. When we get to the prevention tier, which is your green category, then you're working with targeted social emotional supports. So these are your children who are at risk. You're going to help to support them in any dynamic that is a prevention level. Okay? Then as we get to the top of the pyramid tier, we've got our intervention tier. And that's where it's working with children with intensive support needs, okay? So, any questions on the pyramid? So we've got promotion, prevention, and intervention, okay? And I think one of the great things that I really enjoy about Pyramid is that the goal with Pyramid Plus is not for us to single out the one child that's presenting the challenging behaviors. It's a foundation. We are working with all of the children collaboratively. Is that a word? Yeah, I think that's right. And so when you're coming in and you're setting your classroom environment to be supportive of that dynamic, you're helping the entire classroom. You're not isolating one child and working with just one child. You're setting that stage where you're helping to support everybody in the room. But then once we get into that prevention level mode, then we do start working with those children that can be at risk. Okay? And then if the need arises, if we need to get to that intervention level, then you're working very intensely and closely with with supportive needs. Okay? Okay. Expectations of the pyramid model. So instruction takes place in an inclusive setting. We are not going to make any progress at all if we have an exclusive environment. Our classrooms, just like that of our teaching team, need to be inclusive. We embrace the inclusion and set that stage for that inclusive environment. And that's step number one is part of creating an expectation of the pyramid model. Each level of the pyramid builds upon the lower level. So we can't start at the top of the pyramid and build down. We're going to start at the bottom, build our foundation, and then continue to build up. We've got systematic instruction becomes more intense and frequent as you move up the pyramid. So once you've set that classroom dynamic and expectation, you're setting that stage to empower those children that are able to function within that classroom setting that you've created. That way then, you have the ability to then work closely with the child that needs more of that one-on-one. Instruction is effective and efficient, and families are essential in the partnership, okay? So ultimately, are we still good? Okay.
Let's just check.
All right. So, one of the biggest dynamics that we really look for support from, and it's an equal reciprocal dynamic, is that parent partnership. Having those conversations, keeping your parents in the loop, letting them understand your practice and your goals for your classroom. Okay, so we are going to watch a video here. The video is about 27 minutes long, so, okay. So, how do we feel after watching that video?
Very true.
It's very true.
Yeah. Just basically say kids are doing what they're supposed to, and it's our response that needs changing. It's not. I mean, we're of course going to teach them, but it's our own response to, because of our own dynamics and our own experiences in life.
Mm-hmm.
That, impact, the kids and what we consider negative or bad behaviors,
Okay. So moving forward, evidence-based models for inclusion. There's a list of websites that have evidence-based practices that are included in the Pyramid Plus approach. And then later in the presentation, we'll be covering a little bit more information about these practices in detail. So, but again, they are extremely helpful resources. Teaching Toolbox is a website that has information about LEAP, and they have a lot of research and materials for teachers as well. So, okay. Okay. So Special Quest. Special Quest is a birth through 5-year program. It's an inclusion model which promotes successful professional development and systems change for high-quality early childhood education. And it's a part of an inclusion of young children with disabilities, ages birth through 5, and their families. Okay? Their approach, Special Quest, their approach is to assist teams, programs, and communities and acknowledge the importance of inclusion and empowering families to be the leaders in their communities. Pretty awesome. Okay. Building Blocks. Building Blocks is for preschool teachers with special needs. It's an approach where which supports teachers in curriculum modification that allows all children to participate. It's embedding learning opportunities in typical classroom activities and has child-focused instructional strategies which help students with individual learning objectives. Okay, so this is a reference to the Head Start Center for Inclusion website, which is connected with Building Blocks. Okay. So, and they do note that while this is designed for preschool, there are strategies that can be used in environments for 2-year-olds and toddlers as well. Which teachers for 2-year-olds are always like, thank you. 2-year-old teachers, I feel like they're always right in the middle, you know, it's either infant, toddler, or it's preschool. And those 2-year-olds, you know, they need stuff too. So that will have a lot of resources for those, for both as well. LEAP is the Learning Experiences. It's an alternative program for preschoolers and parents. LEAP is enhanced, evidence-based, proactive, utilizing strategies originally developed to effectively include children with autism in general education. Strategies include promoting engagement and social emotional skills while reducing challenging behaviors in young children. So the evidence-based practices is part of that dynamic where we talk about there's data to support the practices that they're using with LEAP. And for those families where the child could be a child with that's a functioning, like fully functioning with autism and such, LEAP is the program that we would utilize to help support us with that child's care and education. PTRYC is Prevent, Teach, Reinforce for Young Children. It's a systematic approach for positive behavior support that's shown to be effective for children. It's a collaborative approach. It involves developing skills with all of your team members. Its prescriptive process provides great consistency and increased child outcomes. Okay? This was originally designed to assist school-age children, but PTRYC is the new approach designed to assist toddlers and preschoolers as well. So the Pyramid Plus approach is, this is the new Pyramid Plus framework. The evidence-based practices, so all of those different programs that we just talked about, so Special Quest. Special Quest is going to help support us in these environments here, where this was our prevention environments. These are our foundational areas. So Special Quest helps to support, these are those evidence-based practices that are in in line with our prevention tier. Then we have building blocks and LEAP, which kind of helps as part of our prevention, but also working with our, sorry, I said that word, promotion, thank you, with our promotion, but building blocks and LEAP will help with prevention strategies within the tier program. And then as we get to the top of the pyramid, PTR and LEAP will help with the intensive intervention for the children at risk. Okay? Any questions about the programs and how they fit with the Pyramid Plus approach? Okay. All right, we'll keep going. So the pyramid modules are in conjunction with the handouts that we gave you. So the Pyramid Plus approach difference. So we have our target audience, which is classroom teachers, program administrators, early intervention providers, and then the Pyramid Plus approach. So it also helps to incorporate the health providers, parents, home care providers, and community members, early interventionists, foster care. So you can see how utilizing those programs like Special Quest, LEAP, PTRYC, will actually, it broadens the environment, the exposure rate for all of those that can be supported with that learning dynamic. So each program will have, there's materials, examples, there's content and such, but when they did the Pyramid Plus approach, they wanted, the goal is that we're giving more resources and access to those in a broader sense, especially if you're in the foster care system or you're an early interventionist. So again, helping to really help support children from birth to 5. Okay? Okay, Pyramid Plus approach sessions. This is the breakdown of all 18 sessions as part of Pyramid Plus approach. And as I spoke about earlier with your handout, you can see that they're color-coded to match the color of the pyramid themselves. So sessions 1, 2, and 3 are really going to be highlighting that effective workforce dynamic. Okay, we're really going to be making sure that we're setting that inclusive environment. We're looking at all those dynamics as part of our classroom, as part of all of the students in our room. When we get to sessions 4 through 9, we are now working more in the nurturing and responsive relationships and the high quality supportive environment. 10 and 11, we actually go back to the effective workforce. This is where we're talking about universal screening and teaming with families. So of course it makes sense that we would go back to that foundational mode as part of our effective workforce, okay? Once we get to sessions 12 through 15, we go back up into that pyramid tier and to that prevention tier, and we're going back into the targeted social emotional supports. And so planning embedded learning opportunities, social and friendship skills, emotional literacy and competence, supporting early development, self-regulation to conflict resolution. I know I see happy faces, I see some smiles. Yep, these are going to be the areas where we really, where we start to really help to support some of those children in our programs that could be at risk. Okay, and then once we get to the top of the pyramid, modules 16, 17, and 18 are for that close, inclusive support at the top of the pyramid for the intensive intervention, okay? And I did provide that handout for you as well so that you can see. And on the PowerPoint, it's a little harder to read just because the PowerPoint, they're small, but I wanted to make sure you guys saw that as well, so. But we just talked about that, but we're gonna make sure that it's clear. So again, the foundation is the yellow tier. So the 1, 2, 3, 4, and then sessions 10 and 11. Okay, and when we get into managing our complex change, this is a sneak peek as we get to session 3, the effective workforce and the systems. We're gonna, when we get into session 3, we'll go over some more of this in depth. This is just an opportunity for us to give you a preview of what's to come. So you'll get a lot more of this information as we move on in our sessions. But as you can see, based off of the color, okay, you can kind of see where it falls in line. So resources, your vision, your action plan, you're going to be able to look at the goal of this chart is that you can look at the categories that you want to, that you want support in or that you're working to support a child with. You want to create that action plan, and then we want to change this gray column, okay? So that's the goal for us here with our session 3 workforce and systems, okay? And again, that's just a sneak preview. I know it's just a little taster on, it's just a little taste test right now, but we will go into this in more in depth, okay? The blue tier, sessions 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, those are the high quality environments and the nurturing and responsive relationships. Those are going to be a part of the prevention tier, and ultimately, again, we're just doing a nice little taste tester so that you guys can see just how the sessions are laid out, so that we're building from that base up, okay? Okay, so nurturing and responsive relationships, human relationships, and the effects of relationships on relationships are the building blocks of healthy development. Okay, so responsive relationships, be it parents and children, I think we all agree that the better the relationship that you have with a family, I think the more honest and transparent we are with families about a child's development, then the more opportunities for collaboration and healthy development for families. So, okay. And this is a sneak peek of session 5, nurturing and responsive relationships. Okay. Also, a sneak peek of part of session 5 is the connected versus the disconnected. Making those connections versus no connections at all. Okay? Hot buttons. Okay? Hot buttons. In session 5, we're going to go over this in more in depth. We're giving you a chance to preview what's to come. We're gonna talk a little bit about just a couple of these questions. I think it's always really good for us to evaluate our own responses to situations. So on your handout, just take a quick second and write down a couple of behaviors that push your buttons. We'll just do a little taste testing on hot buttons, but we will be doing more in-depth discussion around hot buttons in session 5. And so, you know, and I think it's always good for us to take that time to reflect, you know? Someone asks you that question, like, oh yeah, that's a really good, I haven't really thought about my hot buttons, but I can write them down really quickly for you, you know? And so, so you've written them down, but let's wait to go into more in-depth, you know, how do they make you feel, and then what is the impact of those hot buttons. So we want to make sure that we can give you time to, you know, decompress, think about it, you know, really set that goal for yourself too of what's your outcome, what's your goal for once you realize what those hot buttons are. So if there's anything that we wish to change in the child, we should first examine it and see whether it's not something that could be better changed in ourselves.
It reminds me of the, you can point one finger at somebody, but throw your pointing right back at you.
Yep.
I like that. One finger out, but oop, there's quite a few pointing back at me. So yeah, I think that if there's multiple times, and I taught a parent class on child temperament, and you know, if you ever really want to understand what, you know, it's hard for us when we're the age, you know, when we're the age of 3 and 4 and 5, and we have all of these emotions, we have all this energy, and we don't know what those are called. We're 4. I just know that I want to run around. I want to know what's going to happen if I throw this on the floor, and what's the teacher going to do? And so how can we expect them to put a label on that when they themselves are still trying to discover what that is and how to rationalize their emotions? So when I taught this class for parents, it was, we can't change temperament. What we can do better is understand it better. And by understanding it better, if I know that I am a soft-spoken, shy, quiet, clearly I'm not, but if I know that about myself, but yet my child is exuberant, is passionate, you know, is excited, you know, then there's ways to be able to come with it. But I think that's one of those dynamics where we look at the behaviors, and instead of examining it, we just make those quick judgment. So every child needs one person who's crazy about them. How many, by show of hands, how many of you recognize the name Yuri Brockenbrenner? Any ECE 101s? I took it so long ago, but Yuri is, he was an advocate for children, truly passionate about, you know, the importance and dedication of high quality experiences and education for children. And while, again, we're still in just sneak peek mode, Yuri was one of those that really just kind of set the stage for classroom environments, interactions, and I think he's, you know, I believe, you know, Yuri was one of those that really kind of helped to change the dynamic of, you know, coming away from the term of daycare and more early education and childcare. So, and we'll get more into those dynamics in session 5. So now we're moving again up that pyramid. We're up to the green tier. We've got sessions 12, 13, 14, and 15. And those dynamics will help with that targeted social and emotional support. Okay? And then, if you want it, teach it. A child doesn't know how to read, we teach it. A child doesn't know how to swim, we teach. A child doesn't know how to multiply, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to drive, we teach. And if a child doesn't know how to behave, we teach. We teach or we punish. We can't finish that last sentence as automatically as we do the others, can we? especially, I'll be fair and I will say, we can't always say that, especially when it's a new child that's coming into our classroom and they're learning the environment and they're understanding, the rules and expectations. But can you say that you honestly would say teach if it's 6 months later and we know that we've implemented those expectations and we know that we've given them time to acclimate and transition? Can we still say that we're teaching, or are we punishing? So when we are looking at the graph here, we want to be able to identify teachable moments. And show of hands of where do we think that our teachable moment lies? Do we think it lies at the base? Do we feel like it lies at the peak?
Base.
Do we feel like it lies maybe more, and granted you have the PowerPoint slide on your page, but, so we've got, here's the base, and then we've got the slope, and then we've got the peak. And the peak is not the moment for us to choose to have that teachable moment.
When they're escalated.
Absolutely, you're escalated. You've spoken to the child 10 times already. It's call the director or the admin member to help support you, or the child needs to be removed from the classroom, or maybe we're doing a timeout, or that is not the moment when we are going to be teaching, or that child will be retaining any moments of teaching. So these are ultimately, this is our moment. We see the behavior, and before it really spikes, this is the moment where we really want to be instrumental in that teaching moment. Okay. Creating planned social opportunities in the classroom. So look at things children do every day. Have children invite peers to an activity. Have children pass out and collect materials. I know that in a lot of our classrooms, we have assigned jobs, which I think is fantastic because it empowers the child to be a part of the community of the classroom. So we have everything from, and we give them technical terms, which I love. So the child who is in charge of the light switch is the electrician. The child who is in charge of, placemats, is the snack helper. There's multiple opportunities for us to provide the children an opportunity to be a part of the room every day, okay? Start thinking in terms of creating social opportunities too. So plan for social skill opportunities during your curriculum planning times, and involve the staff in your planning time too. So I think that's one of those dynamics where we really do look at, as teachers, we can be so focused on our lesson, but make sure that that resource teacher who comes in to give you your lunch break, make sure they have that information as well, or the teacher who's there to relieve you at the end of your shift. Provide her those insights as well. These are the classroom jobs, so make sure if these children are still here that, this is the line leader, this is the electrician, this is the chair stacker. Having it be a collaborative effort also teaches the children that every teacher in that classroom is just as important as you are, okay? And really helps to develop that respect across the board. Okay? Okay, the importance of friendship. We know that that's important because the single best child predictor of adult social adaptation is not school grades or classroom behavior, but rather how well a child gets along with another child. And we know this. We see this on an everyday, dynamic, because ultimately the child that struggles with social interaction and wants to go and play, the child that, for lack of a better term, is the victim, do they want to play with that child? More than likely, no. And so, it's incredibly important for us to be teaching that friendship dynamic. And that, again, will be what we're discussing in session 13. Children with a strong foundation in emotional literacy, they tolerate frustration better, they get into fewer fights, they engage in less self-destructive behavior, they're healthier, they're less lonely, they're less impulsive, they're more focused, and they have a greater academic achievement. Okay? So, session 14 will go into more detail on emotional literacy and competence. Okay? So now we've hit the top of the pyramid. We're at the intensive. We're at the red tier. And the red tier, sessions 16, 17, and 18, where we're really going to be creating our behavior support plan. We're going to understand the function of the behavior and the assessment. And we're going to be developing and implementing and monitoring strategies for behavior plans. So I'm going to give you a lot of that resource to help be able, once we're done, and we've completed our Pyramid Plus training, you can take this function, these support tools, back into the classroom to help you identify exactly how to best support in those intensive interventions. Excuse me, I lost my word there for a second. Okay, so intensive interventions. We're gonna, in those sessions, 17 and 18, we're gonna talk about the form of behavior and the function of behavior. We're going to determine the form and the function in our functional behavioral analysis. We're going to talk about some positive behavioral support plans, and then as we get into those sessions, we're going to break up into small groups, and you'll be given vignettes that are based around children and the dynamics of their support needs, so that you guys can work collaboratively on how to best support, what you would do to best support this child. Okay, so it's actually really kind of fun. I really enjoyed it, and I think it helped me to really think outside the box when it came to some of these different dynamics. So, okay. So then our key points. So that. At the end of 18, that would be the last session. So our key points, the developmental continuum perspective ensures the unique needs of infants, toddlers, and preschoolers are specified and met. Some practices are age-related, so some practices are effective with preschoolers should not be used in an infant and toddler classroom. But it's important to understand the conceptual link between the infant and toddler and the preschool content while respecting the unique needs of all children in your classroom. Okay. Our major messages. Pyramid Plus is, again, it is a state-funded, not-for-profit organization housed at the University of Colorado at Denver. The focus of the work is statewide scale-up. Again, we really want to spread that out there to the masses and get it as, implemented in as many classrooms as we can. And we want that sustainability of promoting the social emotional competence, addressing challenging behaviors, and inclusion through evidence-based practices. Pyramid Plus approach training includes the content and framework of the pyramid modules and embeds other evidence-based practices to support inclusion. Okay? All right, so in your handouts, you have your activity sheet that's called the Thought Seeds. And what I would like for you to do is to take a few minutes and answer the following questions. Over the course of the sessions, we did these for each one, and ultimately, it was really insightful to see, how my thought process changed over, 18 sessions. And, what I was really excited about taking back into the classroom, what I learned, what I felt like I could apply to my classrooms, to my families, to my teachers. So take a few minutes and go ahead and do your thought seeds. Our quality improvement. So, what went well tonight?
There was a lot of good information.
All of the information?
Yeah, a lot of good information.
A lot of good information.
Yeah, I think it's a good beginning to know where we're going.
Okay. Anything else? What else went well today?
Anything?
Sorry.
Anything?
Anything?
It's nice and bright in here, I like that.
Okay. Okay.
Some of this content was really inspiring, so hopefully we leave excited for the next class.
Yeah. Oh, great.
Okay. Anything else?
Understanding social emotions makes great difference to work with children and also parents.
Anything else? Okay. What needs improvement?
Video.
Video. Okay. Anything else?
I think it will come the further we get into the course, but discussion.
Discussion? Okay. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much for your feedback. I have evaluation forms that I'm going to have you fill out for me, and then we will call it a night.